Cornerstone Gundog Academy, online resources to help you train your retriever.
Welcome to the Build From Here podcast. On this episode, it is a high honor to be bringing someone that you probably already know on. If you don't know him, you will know him after this episode. And if you don't know him, you should get to know him. He's really just been an amazing CGA member, an amazing friend, but he's also been, he does something unique. And we'll dive into that. But with Skeen Outfitters, he does something unique, and he provides an amazing place really for waterfowl hunting and all types of hunting in general. But for us dog people, he's my go-to guy. If you want to take your dog hunting, he's the guy to go with, right? He always accommodates us and accommodates the members because he is a member. He's a Cornerstone member. He was a Cornerstone member first, and kind of the dog thing and the whole hunting thing got him rolling into it. But Wade has just been such a hard worker and such a helpful person for anyone that wants to get their dog out there hunting, and just a great guy to know. So it's a high honor, and I can't believe you haven't been on this podcast already. So welcome aboard.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's probably a 8-year relationship with you and your dad between hunting and started out as a CGA member, and going back to pictures and videos and meeting you guys picking up dogs in Mississippi back when CGA first started, and over the years have become pretty close friends. And I know y'all have been up here hunting, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times at this point, maybe 1 or 2 more than that. And CGA has been a big part of everything we've done, from a different mentality of training my dogs going back to the very beginning. And then of course the relationships that have come from CGA, not just with the Parvins, but with other members, and really has been a big part of everything we've done, going back to when I was still in the Air Force, before I was ever even,
that's right,
before I retired and before I started guiding, doing training with other CGA members and meeting people through that, and hopefully helping some of them out, and for sure some of them helping me out, and then transitioning after I retired from the Air Force and started guiding. You guys came up and hunted the first year I was still in the Air Force.
That's right.
But I knew that I was going to retire and start outfitting, and y'all came up and got a lot of content and definitely helped me out as far as spreading the word when we were first starting out, and I mean that still happens now at CGA member weekends and things like that, which it's, the community for CGA has and I'm sure always will be the best part of that business and that brand. So that being plugged into that has been good for me on multiple levels. So appreciate y'all just as much as the other way around. I was talking to Mr. Keith yesterday, and that was something he said something about helping us out, and happy to do that, and that's always been a two-way street, both ways for us and for CGA, because it one feeds right into the other. I love having CGA members up here to hunt with us, because I know what to expect as far as what kind of dog they're going to bring, or at least what their goals for their dog is going to be if they bring them up here to hunt with us, and it allows us to do something that is a little bit more unique when it comes to outfitting. There's outfitters out there that let you bring your dog. A lot of times they want you to have your own group, or different stipulations like that, whereas there's plenty of times where we have CGA member only groups, like it'll be 4, 5, 6 of them, and they might bring 4 dogs, but I know that the dogs are going to be at a certain standard, and we can work together to make sure it's a positive experience for all the hunters and all the dogs, because a lot of times that's the whole reason they're doing it, because they spend all this time with a dog and effort and money and everything else, and maybe they live somewhere where they don't get a chance to see what their dog can do, or get their dog on the opportunity to take advantage of all that training they put in. And so they bring their dog up here to take advantage of that. And it's it's been a win-win for us and for CGA and CGA members alike. So very, very grateful for the relationship on multiple levels.
Yeah, we are as well. And you're right. We all train for that moment, right? Obviously, we have family companion first, but we all want to get that dog out there and put it to the test. And personally, I don't think there's a better place to put it to the test than in Kansas. I mean, you're going to have opportunity. That doesn't mean you're always going to pile them up, but you have the opportunity when you go there. And as for Alabama boys, anywhere in the Southeast, it's kind of a little bit of a drive, but it's worth the drive when we get up there. And at the very least, it's good people.
Well, you're gonna be comfortable and taken care of one way or the other, and you're not gonna go home hungry.
No. Yeah, this last year, y'all crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. It's been incredible to watch you guys grow and all of that. Well, for the crew, everybody's got a perception of you if they're familiar in the waterfowl industry. Let's go back before this waterfowl industry stuff. Let's go back to your roots. Where are you from? How did you get into hunting and in general outdoors? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny to have this conversation with you from the standpoint of we've talked about all this stuff a million times and known each other for so long, but first time being on here. So grew up in Mississippi, in North Mississippi, around Grenada. Was there until I was 17. Grew up doing a lot of whitetail archery hunting. Some turkey hunting and a little bit of waterfowl in Mississippi. And I mean, still is to a large extent is, very gear intensive and probably a lot of money wrapped up in it as well. And my dad just never was into waterfowl. He had one experience getting dunked in the wintertime, and his waders filling up when he was, young, and he just never really cared much for waterfowling after that. But he did, love to bow hunt, and love to turkey hunt and stuff like that. So that being in the outdoors my whole life. I mean, my younger brother and myself, if he was going somewhere or doing something, we were there with him, and it didn't matter what it was. And so that woodsmanship, even though it wasn't waterfowl hunting, it still translated into any kind of hunting, honestly. We always had labs growing up, and never really had much experience doing any training with them or anything like that. But once I joined the Air Force, and I was in Louisiana, stationed there for 8 years, did some hunting on base there. We were really lucky. We had like 20,000 acres on the Air Force base there. And did some waterfowl hunting there and had a little bit of success with it. And had a couple of labs there. But unfortunately, between deploying and then subsequently moving to Hawaii for 5 years after that, just didn't really have a chance to put a consistent effort into training a dog and really getting the most out of that. Like I said, went to Hawaii for 5 years from 2007 to 2012.
And that's not a bad gig right there. Now, which part of Hawaii were you guys at?
We were on Hickam Air Force Base, which is it shares the runway with Honolulu International. So right off of the airport there, butts right up to Pearl Harbor Naval Station. If you've ever gone there and gone to the Pearl Harbor Memorial, it's right there on the harbor. And it was cool. I'm glad we lived there. We had our daughter Izzy was 6 months old when we moved there, and wow. And Lydia, of course, loved it there, and Izzy loved it there, and one day would like to get back to the point to where we could go back there regularly and visit. Especially when the weather's not so great here. We still have a bunch of friends there, and a lot of our half of my unit that I worked for there was Hawaii Air National Guard, so they were local guys, and so we still have a lot of contacts there and stuff like that. So I'd love to get to the point and go back there on a regular basis and maybe even do a little bit of hunting there, because I didn't when I was stationed there. But plane tickets are just crazy to get there. So we just hadn't
Yeah,
hadn't
it's
messed
kind of
with it yet,
expensive.
but sooner or later that'll probably be a regular thing for us. But we were there for till 2012, so almost 5 years. And then we moved to Kansas in 2012. And I the way the military works, I had gotten a assignment from Hawaii, leaving Hawaii, what's called out of cycle. So I kind of was able to look at what bases needed my career field, my rank, and kind of pick out somewhat, still based on the needs of the Air Force, but kind of pick out where I wanted to go. And at that point,
Nice.
Scott Air Force Base in Illinois was my first choice. Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska was my second choice. And then here at McConnell Air Force Base in Kansas, just outside of Wichita, was my third choice. I got on the Manning website, the personnel website, and I could see that there was a really high need for my career field, my rank here in Kansas, and told Lydia at that point, I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure we're going to get orders to Kansas. I had never been to Kansas at that point, but
Oh, wow.
Kansas was synonymous even, 12, 14 years ago, with big whitetails. And at that point, that was my main motivation for coming out here. Was I knew, like, coming out here, the bow hunting side of things would be really good. And that was really what I was most interested in at that point. Kansas was really kind of a sleeper state for waterfowl at that point. Nobody was talking about Kansas for waterfowl. We all know how that's changed. But
very much so.
But at that point, I didn't even realize the waterfowl potential in Kansas. I got out here and just happened to link up with a really good friend of mine who was doing ducks unlimited stuff, did a lot of waterfowl hunting. And it just so happened his main hunting buddy was deployed at that time. So me and him hunted together all the time and started hunting public land here. And it was a completely different experience because you could throw 18 floater ducks on your back in a decoy bag and a blind bag and your gun and a stool, and you could walk out onto public land and shoot a couple of limits of mallards. And that was like unheard of to me growing up in the South, where you either needed a really high end lease or, a really nice boat to get you back into where you needed to go, things like that. So the accessibility of the hunting up here really completely opened my experience up, because I'd always loved waterfowl hunting, but it just never was really accessible to me. And so started doing that. And he had that buddy, the same David Widger, same guy I'm talking about. He had a really, really nice black lab named Jolly that was probably 5, 6, 7 years old at that point in time. And when I hunted with him, and I was like, okay. And I knew at this point I'd been in the Air Force for 13, 14 years. I knew I was kind of on the backside of my career. I probably wouldn't have to move anymore. And so got my first dog and started training him. And this was a little bit before CGA, probably 2 years before CGA had started. And, kind of used some more of the more traditional ways, American style training of training a dog. And this was the first dog that I had really put the time in to training to what I would consider, a finished HRCH type level. And he was a really great dog. He was extremely high strung American line dog, would run through a brick wall to get to retrieve whatever. And, got him really to a high level of competency. Unfortunately, because of his bloodlines and my lack of knowledge, really dealt with a lot of control issues with him, more in the blind and at the house and things like that. And, a lot of that we both know is genetically driven, but my lack of knowledge with training methods probably, contributed to that to some extent.
Right.
For sure did.
Yeah.
So about the time he was 2, was around about the time CGA came out, and so happened I was getting a British dog at the same time, and started utilizing CGA, the original Gundog. And I'm forgetting the correct pre 52 plus. I'm forgetting the actual name of the classic Gundog series.
There you go. The classic.
Yeah.
I like it. We might have to rename it the classic Gundog series.
Which I still go back and watch now, because you can go in there and cherry pick like specific points and drills and things like that you can separate out that stand alone, and it's really helpful for that. So started training her, utilize CGA basically from start to finish with her. Ran some HR or some UKC tests with her. Got her. Oh geez, I'm brain farting.
Started.
No, not started.
Season
title with her. Sorry.
Yep. Was this Bree?
Yep.
Bree.
And and just kind of kept going from there. At this point, I was still in the Air Force. I was still, I deployed a little bit, but I'd gotten a job teaching where I had more of like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job, not deploying.
Nice gig.
Yeah, it gave me
a little bit better.
Gave me a lot more consistency and stability and stuff like that. And then, so Parish Major from SOK East, who we kind of all know at this point, one way or the other, he and a friend of his had come out here just to hunt with me. This was probably 2018 time frame, something like that. Yep. And Parish is a retired Navy guy. And
okay.
And I was getting, I was getting pretty close to that 20-year mark in the Air Force at that point, and kind of looking at different options as far as what I was going to do when I retired from the Air Force. And I was finishing up my bachelor's degree in organizational management, and was actually getting ready to start a master's program in instructional systems design, from teaching and curriculum development type stuff and things like that. And he asked me when we were hunting one day, he's like, "Hey man, what are you gonna do when you retire?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll go work for Boeing or Spirit or Textron or one of these aviation companies, hopefully on the curriculum development side of the house, and kind of do something like that based off of my aircraft experience, my Air Force experience." And that was, that's kind of the laid out path for you, given my background, and going back a few years prior to that, I guess, and this is, relevant to how I knew Parish, how I knew you guys, all this other stuff, social media, Facebook specifically, these groups had come up and stuff like that, to where like there was all this interaction with people with common interests, and you really kind of built some significant relationships through that medium, before it was a little more watered down than you'd call it nowadays, saturated. And that's how I knew Parish. That's how I knew, you and your dad and so many other people in waterfowl and retriever world was through those, those Facebook groups early on. But Parish, when he asked me that, and I told him, go work for Boeing, yada, yada, yada. He's like, man, and Parish lives in Charleston, South Carolina, for folks that don't know, but, not a waterfowl mecca, so to speak. But he's a fantastic dog trainer, and definitely somebody I'd consider as a mentor in the dog training side of things. But he said, he's like, man, if I were you and if I lived where you lived and was doing what you were doing, he said, I think I'd train dogs in the spring and the summer, and I'd guide hunts in the fall and the winter. I was like, well, that sounds like a wonderful idea. But I'd never put pen to paper to see what that looked like. I didn't know, like, is this profitable? Is it, is it realistic to at that? I mean, I have 2 kids and a wife and support a family and all that kind of stuff. Like, how does that pan out? And so that kind of started it. And I'd helped some other people guide hunts prior to that. And so I'd kind of seen the guiding side of things, as far as, how to utilize land to where it's affordable without, because originally I thought like, oh man, I need to buy 10,000 acres to be able to do. Well, that's not realistic for most people.
Most people, yeah.
But then when I kind of figured out the day leasing aspect of it and how to build it up slowly without, incurring this huge upfront cost, I was like, okay, this is actually kind of manageable. And by that point, people are already reaching out to me to come out here and hunt anyway. And I was, I would just take people hunting because I like to take people hunting. And which worked out well, thankfully. but so I started putting all this down on paper and looking at it, and I already had a lot of people reaching out to me for help training their dogs, whether it was, just one-on-one or like putting together like a training day type deal to where we'd go out and create hunting scenarios and all this kind of stuff. So like I was already doing all this stuff. I just wasn't doing it as a career. So I just had to look at it and see if there was a realistic way to transition from that being my hobby to, an actual way to make a living. And so, like I said, Parrish come out here, you guys had come out here. I'd had another outfitter locally who was booked out that had like a group of 3 guys from Alabama that wanted to come hunt. And, he was booked up. And he's like, hey, this is a smaller group. Do you have, do you have time off from the Air Force? Could you guide them? And so at that point, I was like, let me do this part-time on my own and see, like, make sure that this is something that I enjoy as much as I think I'm going to enjoy it, because a lot of people don't realize how much goes into guiding waterfowl hunts.
Oh, yeah.
That is not hunting. Man. It is literally 14, 16, maybe 18-hour days. And it can be a lot. You have to be a little bit stupid to do it. You have to be completely ate up with it to tolerate the silliness that comes with it. But it's only for a certain amount of time. Like we only guide in December and January for waterfowl. But when we do, it's every day, nonstop, and long, hard days, cold, wet,
long, hard, cold days. Long days.
There are stretches where like it can really test somebody, and you really have to be dedicated to it to get through those stretches.
I love how you say it can test somebody. Yeah,
yes,
you just don't know until you know until you've been there.
Yeah, and we have 1 or 2 new guides every year that find that out the hard way. And it just is what it is.
Man.
You have to be, you have to be really, really, really dedicated to it, and you probably have to have some sort of background where hardship is not something that runs you off too easily. I'll just put it that way. Because you're just going, there are days where you are going to have to take people hunting that you do not want to do it. Now, there's not many of them. But there's going to be a couple days every season where the weather conditions and things like that are going to be to the point where you're not going to have a successful hunt, but you have no choice but to go try anyway. And you've been up here for a couple of those days.
I remember. We probably have it on video. Yeah. I mean, it was a 40 or 50 mile an hour wind day. Yep. I don't know what the temperature was.
It wasn't that bad that day, and we actually killed a few birds that day. But
we did. But the lake ended up freezing over on us. The little pond.
No! I was thinking of a totally different day.
No. That was, but we did kill 2 birds.
That was a prime example of exactly what we had no business being out there hunting that day. We were not going to kill anything. It wouldn't have mattered where we hunted a pond that day, but we could have hunted a pond, we could have hunted a dry field, we could have hunted the river. It wouldn't have mattered. We were not going to have a day where we killed very many birds.
Those days are more about who you are as a man. They're not anything about who you are as a hunter, because 100%. You're just going out there to see if you can do
it. And as a guide, you have no choice. Like you drove 15 hours from Warrior, Alabama to come up here and duck hunt, and we have 72 hours to do it. I'm taking you duck hunting, one way or the other. And so, that was kind of the point of doing some of those hunts part-time, especially on my own, to see, like, is this going to make me miserable? Is it going to become a job? Because that's what everybody tells you, oh, you're going to turn your hobby or your passion into your job and you're going to hate it. And that's not true. If you're really dedicated to it, it actually just adds a new element to it that makes it even more enjoyable.
100%.
But now, again, there are 2 or 3 days a season, and any guide that tells you otherwise is lying to you.
Build From Here is brought to you by Retriever Training Supply. Build unforgettable moments with your retriever and equip yourself with the tools to create a lifetime of joy and discovery with your dog. Retriever Training Supply offers the tools you need to train your retriever with confidence. To shop now, visit retrievertrainingsupply.com so that you can strengthen your bond, inspire new adventures, and train with confidence, knowing you have the right tools for your retriever.
So did that while I was still in the Air Force, enjoyed it, helped out another outfitter as well, enjoyed that. And then about that time, after that duck season, was when it was time for me to put in my retirement paperwork from the Air Force and decide when that was going to happen and everything. And funny, I have the worst luck in the world. There's no denying that. So I think on March 7th of 2020, we announced that we were going to start guiding hunts. The next day, the stock market crashed because of COVID, and they shut down everything. But like we didn't, that first year we were running one group of hunters, had, a pretty full book of hunters by season that year. I mean, we were still building our groups and stuff like that, but definitely started ahead of the curve, so to speak, for where we were, but because of just what we were talking about earlier with those relationships that we had built over the years with folks like y'all. And of course y'all came up and hunted with us that first year and filmed.
2019, I believe we rolled up there, and I know we've got some good film footage from that. Maybe we'll try to pop it up on this podcast.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know. So that very first year that you and your dad came, I don't know if we have any. I don't know.
I think it was just me and Dad, and then Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin did come, and we did get. I know you did get some content off of that. We had some good hunts that year.
I remember that hunt. Yeah, this is back before you had the Polaris Ranger.
So yeah, I know exactly where this is going. We were hunting that sheetwater mud field, and
you called us because we tried something that morning and didn't go well.
Yeah, y'all went back to the hotel or the Airbnb or whatever, because we
went to go get lunch. Yeah, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings. Yeah, I remember. I was eating some of those fries because those things are so good. Yeah, and you called us, and I heard it in your voice. There's something different in your voice, and so we roll up, and you point out to where we're going. I'm like, yeah, which is not that far when you think about it. When you're energized,
yeah, well, it's 400
but you're not.
But
you're not thinking about what's going to happen after you kill birds.
Exactly.
We weren't thinking about that.
No, we didn't.
We just, we just got to carry a couple panel blinds and a little bit of gear, and no big deal. And except for the heat, it warmed up a little bit and it became unfrozen and it became muddy.
Yes, and it was a flop fest. It was more suited for pigs than it was us. But we did kill birds.
I think we limited. Yeah, we smoked some birds.
It was basically a bean field that had the drainage on it had clogged up with washed out stalks and trash and stuff like that into the edge of a fence line, and it created like a, I don't know, maybe 2 acre sheet water spot in that bean field. And the hunt was fantastic. Getting out
it was great.
of the hunt, we all almost had a heart attack.
Well, we killed a lot of geese.
Yeah, we killed a lot of geese, and we had to huff those geese out of there. Yep. So that was tough. And then now I think that next morning we hunted that cattle pond when Dustin was there. And I think we shot like a 6-man limit of mallards that morning. Like it was amazing. It was one of those like ones you'll never forget. Sunshine, a little bit of wind, and picking off 2s and 3s all morning until we had our limit around 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I mean, it was just and Neil shot the the magic pintail, like 80 yards.
Hey, we got that on film, I believe.
Yeah.
We'll pop it up here too. It was a long shot.
Yeah.
We still talk about that today because it was just
it was
unbelievable.
There's no other that he still shoots that ammo that he was shooting to this day.
I bet he does.
For that very one bird. Like if you ask him why do you still shoot that ammo? He's going to tell you because of that bird. But
well, hey, look, this past year we came up, he smoked another one.
Yeah.
With the same ammo from a long way away. And it and his dog went and got it. So it's it's pretty cool. Yeah. It's amazing too, just and that was before you really got into the guiding stuff.
Yeah,
so you had done
that. I was still in the Air Force at that point.
Yeah, this was just a friend hunt, and we got up there and hunted with you. And that last hunt you're talking about was special because it was where we started. I mean, actually, we were even standing outside the blind, just taking turns, like they were just coming.
Yeah,
we were just taking turns, taking shots. It was we couldn't have done anything wrong.
No,
it was as good as it could be.
One cool thing about that hunt was it was the very first time I had done something, and I don't know if y'all even remember this. You might though. We didn't have any wind that morning early.
That's right.
I took the ice ripper and I put it out in the pond, and it wasn't frozen. I was just doing that to move the decoys early on when I still do that to this day, and it still works on those real calm mornings. If you can run your generator far enough back to where it's not making too much noise and stuff like that. But yeah, that was a magic morning.
It was great.
And then, so that was, like I said, that was while I was still in the Air Force. I started guiding that next year. Y'all came up that next year. We filmed a TV show, and it was really cool because we only had one day to do it.
This is we needed to go behind the scenes on this. This was a miracle.
Yeah,
this was a miracle for all of us. It was
called and said, "Hey, we got to get this done. This is the only way to do it. Only day that we have available, that they have available." And it just so happened that was the only day in January that I had open on the schedule for you guys to come in, and you did, and it worked, and it worked really well. Probably one of the better hunts any of us will ever go on our entire life from the standpoint of just sheer number of birds, how they worked, the footage that we got from it, and then it was just everything about it lined up. Dog work,
it was perfect.
So
that was Violet's so we had come up the previous weekend with you guys.
Oh yeah, that's right. You had come up with two members.
Yeah,
Brad that weekend,
and Jason.
Honestly, I mean, we killed some birds.
Yeah, we didn't kill a lot. We killed a few.
That first morning we had hunted that cattle pond, and it was like 40 or 50 mile per hour winds that morning.
It was, we killed like 4 birds that morning. Yep. I don't know if we did any good the next day. The final day, like right when we were ready to pull out at like noon, the birds just decided to start pouring out of the sky. So we had to stay a couple more hours.
It got really cold, and that cattle pond had frozen over, and we went in there and opened it up. And as with what happens with us a lot of times, and I have to explain this to people a lot, especially guys from the South that are used to killing birds the first hour or two of the day. There's a lot of times, especially when we're hunting these loaf ponds or the river or something like that, our best hunting might be 9:30 to 12:30. And
That's right.
It just so happened that last day y'all were here, the sun came out, the wind started blowing. And
I think we limited, if I'm not mistaken, within like an hour.
Yeah, I don't remember how many we killed, but it went from real slow to real good, real fast. We had a quality hunt that day. And then, y'all came back that next week to film the TV show. And man, that was just as good as it'll ever get, probably for footage, dog work, hunting, the whole 9 yards was really good. And then,
it all came together, and when it does, and that's hunting too.
Oh yeah,
you just never know. There's days when that's what it's a lottery type thing. It keeps you win once, and you got to keep going until you win again. I mean, basically, that's why it's so addictive. It's us hunters, we pour a lot of money. We pour a lot of money into the sport because it's those days are incredible.
Oh yeah, I mean,
absolutely incredible.
It's what keeps you going back for years and years and years. It's like hitting that perfect golf shot on the 18th hole when you shoot a 108 that day, but you strike that 7-iron, from 160 on the 18th and drop it 6 foot from the pin. You're like, I'm Tiger Woods, bro. I'll be back tomorrow. I mean, it's the same thing. But duck hunting, I think, is unique and I say duck hunting, waterfowl hunting is unique in the standpoint of you can do everything right and still suck. I mean, which is what makes it so addictive, though, because the unpredictability of it is what keeps you coming back for more and more. And we see it all the time. Like, this year, when you guys were here this year, like I think the second day y'all had a killer hunt on the first day.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
But the second day that you were here, if I remember correctly, y'all hunted that field basically across the road from where you had hunted before.
That was the third day. I think we went to the river.
Yeah, maybe
we went to the river the second day.
But
no, you're right. No, that was the second.
Nevertheless, that second field that you hunted had more birds in it than the first field you hunted in, like from the scout and the setup and everything else. Like all things would point to y'all would have crushed that day. And I think y'all did kill birds, but it wasn't anything comparable to that first day. And so,
well, yeah, that first day it was, and we've got to release that episode. I mean, it's, we will. I think it's nearly done.
With this is probably a pretty good idea, but
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's too good. I mean, it doesn't get that good normally. It's addictive. I mean, when you see that, I mean, it's wild.
Well, and that was,
beat those types of hunts.
We leaned a lot heavier on geese this year than we typically do. Normally we're really going to push the duck side of things. And a lot of that's because that's what people are wanting to hunt. But as you've seen for yourself, when you get the goose hunting right, it's about as fun as anything else you'll ever do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is a lot of fun to have thousands of birds tornadoing above you and feet down in the decoys. And I mean, it's impressive too. So like, it's nice to have that diversity on the hunting side of things when we do struggle with the ducks, because the last 2 seasons for us, ducks have really been tough, honestly, like late migration. Last year wasn't too bad late. This year we still struggled with ducks late. We had them here, but everything was frozen up and they had been here for about 3 weeks with the freeze up, and it was tough. But when you can go out and drop a 60 stack of geese in a field, that makes that steak taste a little bit better for supper that night.
Oh, yeah.
So I definitely had some, some success with that, but it's been a growing process. We started out, going all the way back to that first year y'all came up here to do the TV show. We were doing one group of lodging hunters at a time. For several years, we would do one group of lodging hunters, one group of non-lodging hunters, where guys would just go get an Airbnb or whatever. And it was cool because it was a more affordable way for some guys to come out here and do a guided hunt. I didn't personally like it because we didn't have the connection with the hunters. Like, you'd get done.
That's right. Yeah.
You get done with your hunt. And if it was a mediocre hunt or whatever, they would go back to their hotel or Airbnb and kind of bored type deal. So it was a less enjoyable overall experience for guys. And then last season was our first season of having 2 lodges that are both,
they're fantastic,
very nice places, and they're 10 yards apart. And of course, having somebody like Mr. Danny here, who's not just a cook, but he's
Mr. Danny makes the experience. He is tier 1. He's an amazing man.
Yeah.
And I repeatedly saw him make the experience for multiple people. Yeah. Right. I just the way he goes and tends to people, takes care of, he cares. He truly cares about you. And you can't put a price on that. You can't put a number on that. Nope. I mean, that's just who he is.
Absolutely not. And man, and I could go on all day about him because, there are times where you know how it is at this point too. We've had the same people hunt with us year after year after year after year, and they're not clients anymore at this point. They're friends, Their family. It just cost us money to do this, so we have to charge them. Otherwise, we would just have them come out here and hunt. But a hurricane hits on the coast in Florida or South Carolina or something like that, and I get a text message from Mr. Danny. Hey, I just checked in on so and so and so and so and so and so. The weather didn't get them. They're doing good. And before I even have a chance to reach out to these folks, he's reaching out to them, and he looks at it just like we do as far as the relationships that we have with these people that come out and hunt with us. So he's an entertainer. He's a caretaker. He's a chef. He's a manager. I mean, you could go. You should probably just have him on here at this rate. But
yeah. I mean, we should. I was just thinking that we might have to have Mr. Danny on for the build from here.
So anyway, yeah, he makes the experience for everybody, for anything that it doesn't include hunting. So having the 2 lodges, having him, and then, I mean, we have amazing guides from the standpoint of just their dedication and what they'll tolerate between the conditions and me winging it sometimes and what I ask of them and stuff like that. And I think they're as good as it gets. So I couldn't be more grateful for the guys that we have that help us out. And then of course, Lydia, like all the things that she does while we're running 90-0 down muddy gravel roads and stuff like that to make sure.
Yeah, you couldn't do it without her. I mean, and she's been okay with all this and she supported you through it. I mean, she's the real MVP of what y'all got going on because, I mean, we, like you said, 18-hour days. I mean, you're barely seeing each other during the time. And it wasn't until recently, like you said, you've got a good team, and this is a lesson I think we could pull too and pull back in the dog stuff too, because there's the progression of where you got to where you guys are at now. But when it started, when we came out, well, before it even started, we were just, you had a couple of panel blinds, a few decoys, and we're shooting a couple of ducks. Yeah. Then you go, like you said, the COVID hit, and then you started going full bore. Let's do the operation. But I mean, y'all had a lot of heavy lifting during that time, and a lot of the work was done by you to begin with. Now you started building a team that's helping you get to where you're at. And tying that back to the dog stuff, it's the same with people when they're starting the journey of training a dog. What we're really talking about is a journey of success. And if you want to have a journey of success, you've got to be willing to grind it out. You got to be willing to put in the work, but you got to be willing to realize, like, you're not going to get to where you're at today without, you're not going to get to where you want to be, which is where you're at today per se, without what's in between. And there's a lot of work that goes in between. But if you're willing to do that, you can. And it's pretty cool to see where you guys have come in actually just a few short years. I feel like y'all have done really well. You've made some great connections and things have just worked out.
I think we just finished our 5th season of guiding. And I think like where we are for the amount of time we've been doing it is definitely, probably ahead of the curve for most people. So those relationships that we've had and going back to the early points and things where it was just Lydia and myself most of the time, and the stuff that she does, administratively to organize things and to keep guests informed prior to their hunts, and man, all that stuff. I hate it. I don't like doing Excel spreadsheets. I don't like building, paperwork of what to expect forms and things like that. And she does enjoy those things, and she is exceptional at it. And so that having that support from her has been, just as instrumental in any of this as anything else, because without that, it wouldn't have even gotten going, much less to where we are at this point. So yeah, I can't say enough about that. And man, you are who you surround yourself with 100%.
100%.
And we've always had good people helping us out and stuff like that. But where we're at with it now, and the professionalism and work ethic and dedication of the people that we have now is, I think, what really gives us an advantage all across the board.
And we always highly recommend you guys. I want to talk about this for a second. Ask you a question from a perspective, right? Because you're in this unique place, right? You're doing the guide and stuff, but you're also a Cornerstone member. And I kind of want to go back and then weave some of the training stuff in. But so obviously you had some experiences with your first dog, the high strung dog, and kind of done it the old way. going back when you first got your new dog, Bree, and going through Cornerstone, what was that like, comparing and contrasting a little bit to the old way you had done things? And then, as you've advanced and worked more dogs through, and as we've come out with a 52 plus and then so on from there, how has that been for you? Let's put the trainer cap on for a second, talk about that.
So
then I want to tie that back into something we mentioned very early in the podcast, which is, you know what to expect when Cornerstone members are coming out. But let's go back with you specifically with your dogs, and then we'll kind of tie back into that.
Well, I think the biggest difference that you run into from the start is the expectation when you start, originally with Cornerstone and now 52 plus, but it's a process, and you have to embrace the process of it, and not, and we still see it every day with new puppy owners and starting to train, and they're so amped up and they're so excited. We're all guilty of it. We've all been there the first time we trained a dog. But my dog is 16 weeks old, and I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that, and what do I have to do? First off, your dog's 4 months old, so calm down. But that was the biggest difference starting Cornerstone, was like, understand, accept, and learn to appreciate the fact that this is a process, and have fun with the process. Don't get so hung up on expectations at certain dates as far as ages and birthdays and stuff like that go with your dog. Just trust the process. And now it's easy, right? 5,000 members later of going through Cornerstone, it's very easy to fall back on that and say, look, this has worked for a lot of people. And I've personally trained a lot of dogs using these techniques. Like just trust the process. But that was the biggest difference, going from.
Did you find yourself early on, having those questions, right? Especially being early on, back then Cornerstone was fairly new, and, the tendency is to go back to what know.
Yeah.
What kind of pulled you through and kind of got you saying, I just need to just stick with it? Was it just
community?
The community?
You think about in those days, when Cornerstone first started out, and, the individuals that were in there that we talked about dog training, it was nonstop, in the Cornerstone, members group and stuff like that. And the people that were in there at that point, and then they're still there and they still chime in and help people now. But man, there was a group of people in there that was eat up with dog training. And so, and some, had more experience than others, and some were kind of like me that were really dedicated to it, but it had some experience, but not as much. And so that community and talking with each other, daily, was everything when it came to just trusting the process and sticking with it, and so on and so forth. So like,
hey, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just want to stop and ask a favor of you real quick. If you are enjoying this episode, let me know. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you can be aware of any new content that we release. And also, just let me know of what you're thinking. Maybe there's something that stands out to you, or maybe you just have a thought and you'd love to comment. I can't wait to see what you put in the comments, and can't wait for you to subscribe. So now back to the podcast.
Going back to training that first dog with Cornerstone, like just take your time with it, embrace it, and really enjoy the day in, day out of it, and not focus so much on that end goal. You'll get there if you just keep putting those pieces in place, one foot in front of the other. And it may take you a little bit longer than some other methods, honestly. Like if you look at it, like where you can get with some methods versus doing, say, 52 plus or the original Gundog program, like that timeline may take a little bit longer, but your end result that you're going to get to enjoy for the next decade is most likely going to be better and more enjoyable.
Yeah. There's no shortcuts to dog training, right? There's either, if you can have a Band-Aid over a crack, or you could just feel the crack and make sure there's no gaps,
for,
and
for
those
every
the no
shortcut you
gaps
take,
matter.
for every shortcut you take, it's going to come back to haunt you, no matter what.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. Especially when we're talking about hunting in situations like you guys are in, like when, and Colin Berry is a great example of this. When we released that episode with him,
yeah,
he had put in done a fine job with his dog and just took his time, but specifically the foundation that was there. I mean, I don't know how many birds were landing in front of us, but I mean, it was thousands. And for a Labrador Retriever that's as high strung as that dog, and I believe that
Milo's got a motor.
he's got a motor. I think is that a red dog? If I'm not mistaken, he's got some red in him. So he's
yep.
I think so. Anyways, he's got a motor. He's fast but he was restrained, and Colin was relaxed himself. Like he wasn't having to wrestle with his dog. Like he was just able to trust his dog. And that right there is, like you said, early on, if I recall, before Cornerstone, you had a dog that was trained to a high level, but some of those very important things were a struggle that did not allow you to have the most enjoyment. And that's one of the biggest things, is that at the end of the day, it's about enjoying that retriever.
Yep.
We got to take time to make sure you get to enjoy it. And this is where I want to lead us to next is from your perspective too, because you've got a unique perspective. You're seeing it from a higher level view because you're inviting people into your journey of, let's go hunt some ducks together. Let's go kill some geese. And then when they bring their dogs, you're getting to see from another perspective of, obviously you're focused on getting the birds, but then you're seeing them work their dogs, and you see how all of that ties together. And you've got that viewpoint, especially when they're coming in with an obedient dog. And I'm sure nothing bothers a guide more than a dog who ruins the hunt for everybody. And it's not just a guide. I mean, that just bothers everybody.
Yeah. Especially, and in the real world, you're paying thousands of dollars and traveling, hours and hours to come do something like this. Like that is a big thing. And we're talking about it from a guided perspective, but let's talk about it from a non-guided perspective. If you're leasing a club in Arkansas, and you get to go out there and hunt 3 times a season, and it's you and, 4 buddies or whatever. If you have a dog, or if one of your buddies has a dog that is detracting from the hunt, it's a net negative, no matter how you look 100%. At it. And I think that is probably, one of the biggest things that people overlook in the training process is, I don't care how good of hunting you have, that dog's demeanor when it's not retrieving birds is actually much more important than how it retrieves birds. And 100%. Its ability to sit there quietly, stay on the stand, or stay in the mow marsh, or sit by your side, whatever that is. The ability of that dog to sit there quietly and calmly and not distract you or the other hunters from trying to, watch birds, get birds in, things like that. That at the end of the day, look, I can walk out there and get the bird if I have to. I don't want to. That's why I have dogs. But if I have to, I can. But if that dog is acting in a way in the blind that's keeping the birds from coming in and finishing, we're losing this game. And that's that's one good thing about Cornerstone, and specifically 52 plus, is building on that patience, steadiness. Let's just call it what it is, good manners, from the get-go, and using that as the foundation. And again, like I said, it may take a little bit longer to train a dog with Cornerstone methods, but that end product that you're going to get, if you follow the steps and you follow each piece and put it together correctly, that end product you're going to get to enjoy for the next 10 years is going to be better. Yeah. That dog's not going to tick off your 4 hunting buddies or the other 4, 5, 6 guys in the blind with you that pay to go on that guided trip. And that, at the end of the day, is probably the most underrated thing in dog training, is that steadiness, quiet, pleasure to be around. And that, that translates over to home life as much as it does the duck blind.
Absolutely.
How much do you think your wife is going to like that dog that she probably didn't want you to get in the beginning anyway? How much happier is she going to be if that dog will go lay down on its bed and chill out when you're cooking dinner and changing the baby's diaper or whatever it is? to, to be a good member of the household, and that steadiness and foundation and stuff like that. It's just as important there. Even if you hunt 60 days a year, it's still 305 days a year that you're not hunting when that dog's in the house. So
yeah. I think the most important thing about that altogether too is that that's a dog you can enjoy. Right. It doesn't matter how fast you get there if you don't actually get there. Right. We're talking about thoroughly getting to the end goal, which is a dog you can enjoy, that you're proud to take to the blind, and that you won't embarrass you, that you can count on, that's reliable, that's going to do the job. And if you do all that stuff right, you get the foundation right. The advanced stuff is no brainer too, because then you can do, we've had some pretty awesome retrieves out there with you guys, because there's a lot of land out there. So there's some long distance, especially when the guy on the end might not, he pops that bird as it sails away. Exactly. That leads to some long.
Well, and you think about some of those rivers, retrieves too, with the current and, swimming all the way across the river, or birds that get in the current and go down river. And man, sometimes you see some really experienced, good dogs have some tough days. My own dogs included. Like it can be a test for them. So yeah, we've seen that time and again. You get those windy day, especially on geese, when you shoot that goose as they're flying out, and it's already sailing with the wind, and you got a 25, 30 mile per hour Kansas wind. And next thing you know, that thing crumples at, 600 yards out there. You're like, well, we got to go get it.
That's right.
So yeah, but it also presents an opportunity to see some dogs do some really cool things too. And we see that happen a lot. So
yeah, that's pretty incredible. What's been one of your biggest things on the dogs, as a guide, and seeing people bring dogs? Like, what's one of your biggest things that you hope to see, when they're going to bring them in, outside of the stuff we just talked about? I mean, obviously the foundation and all that.
That blind manners thing is huge, honestly. Mostly as a guide, and I kind of have a unique perspective on it as well, because I, not just am I guiding a hunt, there's a lot of times where I'm kind of helping somebody with their dog. So talking to guys ahead of time is really important from the standpoint of, even you might have a dog that's 2, 3 years old, 4 years old, that you've been hunting back home with and shooting, 4, 6, 8 wood ducks between you and your buddies, or some ringnecks or something like that. And that dog may have picked up a lot of birds, but there's a big difference between that and 5,000 screaming lessers over the top of you. So really talking to those guys ahead of time. And there's a big difference. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to have 6 or 8 guys shooting in a blind. And if your dog's only accustomed to maybe you and one other buddy or something like that shooting, that's going to be a huge learning curve for that dog, and being prepared for that, and talking to the handler as well, so that they're prepared for that. Because the last thing I want to see is their dog being nervous because of all that excitement, and then the handler being nervous, overreacting, overcorrecting, because they're not used to their dog reacting that way. So, be prepared, get your dog exposed more to that type of environment when you're training as much as possible, whether it's real gunfire or the most excitement you can inject into a training scenario, calling, goose calls, duck calls, all those things. But just understand, even if you've got a really high end dog, that experience may be drastically different than anything it's ever seen before. And so be patient, be right there with your dog to really assure them that everything's okay, and keep them calm. But, we've been doing this long enough now that, like, a lot of these dogs that come out here and hunt with us have been hunting with us for years, and we've seen that evolution of the dogs. And Colin Berry's a perfect example. I mean,
absolutely,
the work that he's put in with Milo is outstanding. The dog that came out here and hunted with us the very first time with him and Milo versus the dog that came out here and hunted last year, is not even, I mean,
it's pretty crazy.
If I put videos side by side of those two dogs, you would not think that those were the two same dogs, but it's a testament to Colin's hard work and Cornerstone, as far as, you know, what he's been able to achieve with that dog from where we were, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, versus the type of dog he has now. You know, if he didn't have Cornerstone to utilize and to trust to get through the process of the struggles that they had early on, he honestly, what he would have done is thrown in the towel, because that's what most people would do in that scenario if they were utilizing a system that didn't have the constant feedback that Cornerstone has, that didn't have the community that Cornerstone has, that didn't do member weekends where they could bring their dogs out and have that interaction and reassurance that, hey, yes, what you're going through right now is pretty normal. We all kind of experience these things. Stick with it. With it. Make these adjustments. You know, how many times have you been on the phone with him? A lot, right? Like, I mean, you know, there's a lot of conversations there, and that's what I think is the difference between CGA and so many other things out there. And then obviously what's getting ready to come up with building these communities into place to where Josh Parvin's not the only person that can facilitate, you know, some of these more community-based events where guys like that can get that reassurance and that help in person, not just over the phone or not just a forum type conversation, but, you know.
Yeah, we've actually got the first chapter event. We're not even hosting ourselves. Nashville.
I saw that pop up. I thought that was
Kevin
Ryan.
and Seth and Ben. They went out there and got it done. Told them about the vision, and they already got it scheduled. So that's going to be the original event. And one thing I want to pull out of what you're saying there, and just for the listeners to really hone in on something too. You know, it's not about everything going perfect, because it's just not going to.
It's not real life,
right? That's not real life. What is Mike Tyson's quote? Something about
everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That's right. So it's really about what happens after you get punched in the mouth. What do you do with that is what is going to determine whether your dog turns out and whether you get what you originally set out to get, because it's going to happen. You're going to have that moment where it's like, this isn't what I was hoping it would be. And that's actually, you know, I tell people all the time, when you're actually failing, you're actually successful, because that means you're moving in the right direction. If you're avoiding that failure, if you're avoiding seeing the results of it, or putting yourself out there, or putting yourself in those situations, well, you're not doing yourself any good, because you're not going to grow. Your dog's not going to get better. We need those hard moments to push through, just like we talked about with you specifically on your hunting. Some of those challenges early on, right? Not having the big enough team, or not having any team, and then not having all of the connections that you have now, or, you know, all the details that you've got laid out.
We don't have enough time to list all the things I screwed up.
Between where you're at then and where you're now is a totally different ball game. And, you know, success doesn't happen overnight. It's just about consistency over time. And it's about being willing to be punched in the face and get back up and then do it again until you win. And that's the same thing for the dog training. And, you know, it's so cool to see. That's what I love about the Cornerstone members like you and just all Cornerstone members that really get it, or they put in the work, they fail, they get back up, they keep going. And, you know, you said that's why I believe, like we've hit on something here, is the community. Yeah. What it is we've got a community of winners. We've got a community of people who are go-getters, who want to win, who want to be successful, and they don't give up until they win. And that doesn't mean you always feel like a winner. Sometimes you feel like a flat-out loser. But you just get up anyways. You got some dirt, you got some mud on your face, you get back up.
Well, that's a lot easier.
And you keep going.
It's a lot easier to get up and get going when you've got other people around you doing the same thing that are willing to help you out too. And that's where that community comes into play, because when you do have those struggles with it, you know, and we're talking about dog training, we're talking about life. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you get knocked down and you don't have anybody in your corner to help you get up and move on to that next step or correct that failure or whatever, like it's way easier to throw in the towel and be done at that point. But when you got that community around you to say, hey, look, this is what you can take away from what screwed up here, and this is how you can fix it, and this is how you can, get over that hump. Like that's the difference between going on and saying the heck with it and quitting. And that is, has always been the strength of CGA and really is about to probably exponentially multiply with these local groups that are going to be popping up to really.
Oh, it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
We've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, it's finally coming to fruition. We're rounding the corner too. As we're recording this, we're on the last minute details of having everything done to where the new Cornerstone app is updated, and we'll be able to have access to all that. And the Cornerstone members will be able to get, you can connect now on Facebook, but it's not going to be anything like what's coming.
Yeah.
Being able to connect legitimately and have your group of people, your tribe of people in your area, like Nashville or Birmingham or Wichita, Wellington, wherever you guys are at. And this next year of this is going to be great. And, I'm excited for it. I'm really excited about all that, but I'm also excited about, the connections with people hunting wise too. Like, anybody listen to this, you're probably already booked up next year.
I got room.
I got room. You got a little bit of room. Well, there you go. Well, if you're a Cornerstone member specifically, obviously anyone, but specifically Cornerstone member, and your dog's trained, maybe you've made it through week 36 or so, you've got a dog that knows how to hunt, or maybe you've made it through all the weeks, 56 weeks. Maybe you get a group, find a group of guys and girls, and get up there with Wade. Go put it to the test. In fact, as we get these chapters rolling, you can get your local buddies in your local chapter and get up there and do a group hunt with Wade and get your dog out there. And the thing is, you're going to eat good. Danny's going to take care of you. Wade's going to take care of you. But you're also going to have an opportunity to put everything that you've done to the test. And specifically those last 4 weeks of Cornerstone and 56, we do a lot of the stuff we do is similar to what we're doing up there with Wade and the type of hunting. We give everybody a variety of different mock hunts, but doing that before you go and then actually going and doing it. The perfect example of this is Violet. We did not hunt her until we hunted with you. Yeah. We hunted that weekend before the Grind waterfowl TV hunt, and I think she got 5 retrieves a weekend before.
She had some retrieves and was around the hunting environment, but that was nothing.
That was her first time. And then the river, that was her first river hunt. That was her first real hunt where we're actually smashing birds and just absolutely doing well. All the conditions
guns, met. Lots of birds.
The pressure for me, the pressure of we're putting it to the test. And so her handler was nervous. Obviously I was nervous. Like, hey, we're putting Cornerstone's name on the line. It either works or it doesn't. Not that I was nervous that it wouldn't work. I was nervous because it was her first real hunt.
Yeah, there was a lot of exposure happening on that, and
we're gambling.
But you were a lot younger then.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a few years now. Yeah, Violet is 6 now or something like that. Yeah. So time flies. Yeah,
and she was January 2 at the time. Yeah, so that was 4.5 years ago now.
But time flies.
But look at how well she handled that adversity. Being put through the paces of basically just 52 plus. Because
that's all she did.
That was the test bed for 52 plus. You had gone through the program, you had built the program around her and then utilized that and going through all of that adversity and new experiences that she had never seen before, and was able to still successfully navigate that hunt. It was a big,
I was proud of her, and I knew the way we trained was good. Like obviously before 52 plus, we had already helped a few thousand people train their dogs with the Complete Gundog Academy, and we had trained a lot of dogs and all that. So I was very confident in that. But also, there's always the thought in the back of your mind, is it going to work? Is this going to work? Did I do everything right? Did I miss anything? And, I was confident we didn't miss anything, but there's still that just scary thought, especially since, hey, well, this is going to go on TV here. And if this fails, then everybody's going to say Cornerstone doesn't work, even though it does
on
work.
TV, not
yeah, that was before they went to just YouTube.
Yeah,
this was the TV.
I think it was still Pursuit Channel at that point, so it was still still cable, and and a lot of people saw that. But again, it was I think Violet was 18, 20 months old at that. She wasn't quite too
pretty young.
Yeah,
she's pretty young.
And to deal with that many new experiences and not shut down, like
yeah.
And it was cold. The river was up. Like it was not
ice. There's ice in the river.
Yeah, it was not a cakewalk by any means. So, did really well. And it goes back to socialization and training and the confidence you instill in a dog early, is what builds to that point to where they do have that confidence to take on new things that, even though they may not have seen that specific scenario before, they've won enough trying new things through training and socialization, things like that when they do encounter those new scenarios, they push forward and will, push through until they're successful with it. And that's the difference between a well socialized and trained dog and one that's not, because a lot of dogs in that type of scenario are going to shut down. And she did.
Yeah. If we had not built the foundation right, if we had not put in the work, that would have been a wildly different experience. She would have failed, and it would have been a nightmare. We should have had to get put up, and the reason I want to highlight on that is not because I'm a good trainer. I want to highlight on the process.
Yeah, the program is what did that. I mean,
and anybody, and you've seen repeated people do the same thing. A
lot of 52 plus dogs come out and successfully navigate those new scenarios that they've never seen before. And that's the perspective that I have. That's a lot different than most people is, I may get to see more retrievers work on a hunt than maybe anybody else in the country because our environment, we do allow, we're so open with people bringing their own dogs out here. So it's not uncommon.
Yeah, good dogs that can do the work, right? Make sure your dog is ready. Make sure your dog is ready. Don't put yourself in that situation.
Well, and that goes back to the way we do things. Lydia and I are going to have those conversations with people one-on-one, on the phone prior to them coming out or prior to them even booking a hunt. We're going to talk about, oh, hey, can I bring my dog out here? Yes, you can bring your dog out here. Let's talk about your dog. And I'm going to start finding out the specifics on your dog at that point. But it's not uncommon. There's several groups of CGA members that put a group together and come out here and they might have 4 or 5 dogs. And we don't hunt them all at the same time.
We've hunted a few at the same time.
We've hunted a bunch at the same time.
Two works pretty good. Two at a time works great.
My favorite way to do it is to have 2 good dogs that are guest dogs. And then chances are I'm going to have one of my dogs behind the blind or something like that. And that's not because I don't trust their dogs, but if we do get that sailor goose or that duck that goes a half mile down the river in the current, I can take my dog and go get that bird and you can stay in the blind and keep hunting.
Yeah, because that's a big detour when you're talking about a seller that goes way out there. I mean, that's a 40-minute detour.
Sometimes
by the time it's all said and done. Now.
So I'd rather have one of my dogs on hand to go clean that up so that you can stay in the blind and keep hunting. So, but no, we've definitely hunted 4, 5, 6 dogs at a time before, and with the right dogs, it's manageable. Honestly, with the right handlers is more important than the right dogs in that scenario. But again, having that foundation of a confident dog that is willing to keep trying even when things get tough and when things are different. That goes back to the program more than anything. And it's been successful for dozens and dozens of dogs that have hunted with me that I've seen with my own eyes turn into really good hunting dogs.
That's what it's about. It's about getting out there with the community, hanging out, and having a good dog. Well, Wade, what would from the dog perspective, just from a regular guy perspective, not a guide, but just from hey, I got a dog. I always love this final question as we kind of wrap up. We'll have to have you back on. I just cannot believe we haven't had you on since. So
Yeah.
it's crazy, but we'll have to have you back on
we
and
got
talk more.
several other things we got to talk about too, and some of them
it's too
on
bad.
the podcast.
We got stories we could go for 5-10 hours. I mean, just today alone, we just keep doing that back to back. But what's something you would say to yourself, just like a nugget piece of information, like if Wade Skeen was starting Cornerstone or just generally starting training a dog, you got a puppy, 7 weeks old, what would be one piece of advice you would tell yourself other than buy the course and all that? Like what's a little nugget you could say, hey,
it's easy, man. And if I could go back, if I could go back 15 years ago to tell myself this when I first started, and I tell it to people all the time now, and I kind of hit on it a while ago, throw the expectations out the window. Enjoy the process itself. The wins, the losses, everything that you're doing day in, day out, just judge those on their own merits. Deep dive into that. Pay attention to what that dog is doing in each training session, and pour yourself into that, and just focus on the wins on each training session, and how to be a better handler and how to read your dog. And do not worry about what that dog's going to do 6 months, 12 months, 2 years from now, because if you do that, if you focus on that every 15-minute training session, day in and day out, that dog's far going to surpass what goals you ever had in mind anyway. So don't even think about that. Just think about today and what we're going to do for that 15, 20-minute training session today.
Man. Well, that's a good nugget to end it on. That's solid. That's we just got to keep that in the back of our minds always. Remind yourself of it. And Wade, it's been an honor to have you on and just get to talk recount some of the hunting stories and recount some of the dog stories, and looking forward. I'm already thinking about Kansas now. I mean, I know it's June with this heat. I was literally thinking, man, I cannot wait for that cold, crisp air. I can't wait.
I'm excited, maybe more excited for this season than I have been in a long time, because we're all, all those ponds are filling up. All that sheet water's filling up. We can go back to one of those muddy fields like we were talking about earlier that we almost had a heart attack on. Shoot some sheet water birds again. So I think we're primed to have a really good season this year. So I'm excited too. So I appreciate it, man. It's probably a little overdue, and looking forward to the next time we get together and do it again.
Me as well. And again, it's an honor to have you on. And for those of you that are listening to this, you can find Wade pretty easy. Just search, Skeen Outfitters. Where else where's the ways you want them to reach out to you? How can they find you?
I'm the only Wade Skeen in the world. So Google it, SkeenOutfitters.com, type it into Facebook, type it into Instagram, whatever. And my getting in touch with me is not hard.
Nah, yeah, you'll get in touch with Wade. You'll see him out there. He's very active on the social media land. So get in touch with him. Go hunt with him and try some of Danny's cooking. You might leave a couple of pounds heavier, but you'll be happy. I promise you that. And he's a good guy, and we appreciate having you on, Wade. We'll talk soon, and can't wait till next time.
Appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Build From Here podcast. To learn more about retriever training or our podcast, visit CornerstoneGundogAcademy.com/podcast.